Hello, welcome back to one of my videos. I haven't done any videos for quite a long time because I've been really spending more time with the family. We can't really do bikepacking, that sort of thing, easily at the moment. And I did have plans to go into New Forest. We got pushed into Tier 4s in England, so I couldn't move out of Tier 4. I then planned to go into Wales for 4 days bikepacking. Wales got locked down. I then planned to go between Christmas and New Year out to Exmoor for 4 days, and Boris shut us all down and basically and that's where that ended. However, I do have 10 weeks coming up where I can actually get some time off work, and March and April, and so I'm really hoping that Boris eases up a little bit and we can go out, have our freedoms and liberties back a little bit, and go and do some bikepacking. Where I go is completely unknown at the moment, but I'll wait and see. Anyway, at the moment, if you're going to go when we do get our liberties back and are allowed to go out and do some bikepacking, for me, there are the two big types really, are going light and fast, going via Airbnbs, hotels, that sort of thing. I think that's probably what most people do when they're bikepacking and going and exploring. For me, half of the adventure really is going, not off-road necessarily, but going out and camping and staying out in the outdoors and cooking out and staying in amazing places. So that's, I kind of prefer that side of it, although I get the benefits of both and I do both. But when we do get our freedoms back, the snag is going to be actually getting somewhere to stay. So hotels and Airbnbs are probably going to be shut down for quite some time. Campsites might be open because they're outdoors, so camping is quite a good option. And if you're going to camp, then hopefully you can go and get a restaurant and get a takeaway somewhere, or take some food with you. But a really good option is to cook your own food. So what I thought I'd do is just do a short video on cook options. So the options you've got for how you're going to cook your food. The lips are frozen now. So this is just an intro for that really. I filmed it a couple of days back, or a couple of weekends back. In fact, I was going to go out on the bike up into the hills, but I couldn't really justify getting my bike and putting it on the car and driving around. Didn't really look really good in a lockdown. So I didn't do that, I just walked. But anyway, I took my gear and I get it all out, and I'll just talk you through the different cook options that you may want to do if you're going to get back out into bikepacking when we're allowed. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and like, subscribe, etc. If you do, or leave some comments if you're not interested in this sort of side of it. Like I say, I will be trying to do some actual trips soon when I'm allowed. But anyway, hope you enjoy the video. Now, bikepacking wise, I'm just an amateur enthusiast. Really, there are loads of pros out there who do this big time. I just love doing it. But a bikepacking for me, like I say, is just a way to get out and a way to get to go and have your adventure, and it's the best way of doing it. You can walk like I'm doing now and go and set up a little camp somewhere and explore places, but actually bike is the best way of doing it. So bikepacking wise, I've done a few trips and so on, and I made a few videos on some of those. But what I have done a reasonable amount of over the years is wild camping, mainly bivvy in my younger days, and now hammocks and other things. But cooking a meal in the night, in the evening, is an important part of that, particularly when you're out somewhere like this where you've just got wilderness and not a lot of people. And maybe at the moment it's a good thing to be doing, is if it's your only option, to come out and spend some time out in great places like this. And there are 5 main sorts of cook kit that you can take with you, or cooking options. I was going to talk through those really. Yeah, so the first option you got for cooking is a live fire, and that's always my favourite, and it's everyone's favourite, let's face it. I mean, what better way could there be to doing a bikepacking trip than to get a fire going with a load of mates and hang around that. So there are 4 things I think you need to consider when you're going to do it. First of those is safety. You're not going to light a fire when everything is dry and there's any even remote chance of starting a fire. Second thing, I think, is the environment. You need to make sure you're not going to damage the environment, scarring the ground, which I have done once and I really regretted it. I just did look rubbish and it kind of spoiled that little spot. Consider that it's someone else's land as well, quite possibly. Is it reasonable that you're doing that? Right, and the final one, which I just remembered, is whether you want to be stealthy or not. So if it's going to give you away your location, then that may not be a good idea. And sometimes if you're bike packing, you just want to crash down and get your head down somewhere. You might just want to get a fire. You're not going to necessarily know if it's private land or if it's public land or whatever else. So you may not want people to come and find you. And stealthy is a big part of that. So what I would do if I do this, which I do, is to light the fire 15 minutes after sunset. So you've got about 15 minutes, you've got some light there while you're getting it going, and then the smoke, hopefully by the time the smoke starts getting going, it's pitch black and people can't see the smoke, and then you just want some sort of screen to help protect so that people can't see the flame. Yeah, you just don't want people coming and asking what the hell you're doing, particularly when you're lighting a fire. You need to consider which way the wind is going as well. As the smoke's being blown down, you can smell a campfire from quite a way away. So there's some big things there to think about. Okay, well, I just found somewhere to sit down. So yeah, what I carry in my fire kit if I'm bike packing, here's what's in here. So I carry these fire blocks. I just bought a whole load of them real cheap online. There are 4 blocks in there, and if I need to, I can use those to cook on. We'll talk about solid fuel later on, but this is essentially all they are. I've also got these little plastic fire lighting things, fire lighting aids. They're great. I've got a whole ton of these, again really cheap online. And what I do, I get my bit of Tampax, take that off. It's good because it's got plastic cover on it, so it keeps it dry. Take out a little bit of I'll fluff up a little bit one end of it, effectively light that with my flint and steel, and then a couple of those fire lighters on top, and that's it. So I always get a fire going with that. This is a flint and steel that I've got. It's effectively all-in-one kit, really basic. Yeah, it just gets a spark going. It's better than nothing, although it's not as good as my one I take while camping, but it's nice and small, so I can take it with me. And then I take a lighter, normal Bic type lighter. Actually, I've got a couple of those, and that's it. And that just goes into a waterproof bag, and it allows me the option to always light a fire if I really want to, which I do most of the time. I like doing it, providing I've thought about those things that I mentioned to you and sort of set up so you can have a look. But it's very complicated for someone who's got an engineering degree like me to work out. Don't understand it. Does that work? Right. Okay, so another option then that you've got if you want to have a fire or something like that. And the great thing about a fire is the fuel is all around you. Now you're taking a bit of risk whether it's wet or not, so you make that judgment call before you go. And you can buy these sort of fire boxes if you like. This one's quite good in that it's very complicated, and it took me about 5 minutes to work out how to put this thing together again. I've used it a few times, but every time I don't understand. I just keep going until I eventually get it together. It's a Tokes something, I can't remember. You can get all sorts of different ones. This is what's effectively a gasifier, so it's fairly smokeless and it's fairly good. It's a little bit top heavy, so I've got a couple of sawn off tent pegs which I use and I put in the bottom there just to hold it down, keep it steady. But it's okay, so you can get a fire going inside there. So you cram that with wood, you get some tinder on the top, maybe a little bit on the bottom as well, light the top of it, and you have to leave it for quite a long time. And yeah, you can cook. There's a little hole in here, you put your fuel in, you can cook it. So the benefits of this are obviously the fuel. There's no real, you can't move the food away from it. You can't really simmer food or anything like that, but they are pretty handy, and I've used these quite a few times over the last couple of years. So yeah, there's a risk with the fuel in that the fuel could be wet, so you've got to come to a wood or somewhere where you get some decent wood. It's got to be dry wood, it's got to be seasoned wood. If you just put wet wood in there, it's simply not going to not going to work, which is what I've learned the hard way. You cram this thing up, get your tinder in there as well, and light it, and away you go. It's quite good in that it compacts down. The other ones you can get are effectively flat pack. They just fold out and fold in, and they're really simple to set up. So there's a little bit of trick to getting them going, so practice it before you go away. But they're a really nice way to go and have your food. The snag is that the food will cook relatively slowly. You can't really control the flame or anything like that, so you can't simmer stuff or things like that. But they're pretty good. But it's a little bit fiddly, because it's you burning wood. They can get quite sooted up, and so yeah, just consider that. They can be a little bit messy. But I was going to set this up and have my dinner on this, but I don't think I am. I just can't be bothered, because they are just that little bit fiddly. But they're a nice way to go. And the good thing then is, of course, once you cook your food on it, you can just have it sat there and have a little fire going, and give you a little bit of warmth and something to look at. And they're relatively safe. Just be careful as you normally would with a fire. So yeah, and now I'm gonna have to work out how to take the thing to pieces. Every time. It's terrible. There we go. So it just folds up like that, and then I've got my pot, which is in here, and that thing just slots inside. I've then got a rag I chuck in there as well. So the rag and some of the fire lighters I stuff down the side just to stop it rattling or anything like that. So yeah, nothing worse than your pot and pans rattling. So I always take a rag with me, and that gets stuffed in there. And I stuff some fire lighters. Tampac's great just for bulking that out a little bit. And there we go. So yeah, so those are really good for lighting, for if you want to do a wood fire. Okay, the next option down is to use alcohol. So basically you get a little burner like this. No, it hasn't got any in it. So that one's mine. The fuel goes into there. You've got little holes around here. There is a whole world online of people who get into these. They make their own. You can make them from Coke cans, from cat food cans. You can have them as pressurized ones. This is a gasifier, and effectively the fuel goes into there. It then, because it's heated up effectively from the flame, it then gasifies around this outside chamber. It comes up and the gas is effectively burnt off. They're really quite ingenious, and you don't have to have these gasifier ones. You can just have an open tin you could light with the fuel, and there are low pressure ones with the holes on the outside and all sorts of different things. And if you look online on YouTube, you'll find that people design all these different versions, and they time them, and how quickly can it cook my water. I don't really care really. I've got quite a few of these now, which have come with things. So I've got 3 of them. This one's getting a little bit rank actually. Tangier make the really good version. They're just solid and reliable. This one's got a little seal in the top there, so that you can put your fuel in here before you set off. If you're just going out, you're just going to cook up for a lunch like I am today. So I could have put my fuel into there, and then you just screw the top on, and you're away. And there it is. It's sealed, and the fuel is ready for you. Okay, so I've got another one in here. So this one in here is probably my favourite bit of stove. So it's effectively exactly the same as the last one. And sorry, I should mention, here you go. So for this one that I just showed you with the lid on top, you can also get this other lid which then goes on top of that, and it's got this effectively a regulator. So while your fuel is burning in there, one of the downsides of these is that you can't simmer things because you can't regulate the amount of flame that's coming out. But this little contraption, which comes with many of the Tangiers, and you'll find a number of companies make them, and it's effectively just slides, and it varies the amount of fuel that comes out, so you can cook things a little bit more control. The great thing about these is that they are really quiet when you light them, and I'll probably do it in a second. When you light them, it's almost you can't even see the flame to start off with until it gasifies and gets going. But they're really quiet, and so if you want to be a little bit stealthy, then they're a really good option for taking, because they're a really good option. When you want to put the flame out, you literally take the lid and just drop it on top, and that's it. The flame's out. You can keep the fuel that you've got left in there. I'll talk about the fuel actually next. The fuel, so here's a typical fuel bottle. This one's by Vargo. It holds 8 ounces. 8 ounces is about 30 millilitres. 30 millilitres will basically cook up about 450-500 millilitres of water, or boil up about half a litre of water. So one thing you need to consider is, while these are really lightweight and a great little option for cooking, actually it's the fuel that is the problem. The fuel that you use is also all sorts of different types, and I'm a little bit confused sometimes by them. So this one in here is bioethanol, which is the cleanest, best for the environment fuel that you can use. Other fuels that you can use are denaturalized alcohol, methylated spirits, which is effectively the same as the one I just said, and then you can get some others as well. So you can use these. You can get this fuel from quite a few places, so it's actually a pretty good idea. You can get them in most DIY stores and things like that. You can get the appropriate fuel, but like I say, the fuel is quite heavy. So this bottle here, so I've got 8 ounces here. This will get me a weekend or a couple of days out and about. You can also get special safety bottles as well that you can put things into. So it's a good idea, and I really like it. It's probably my favourite type of bikepacking cooking kit to take, really. It's the one I've sort of veered over to, but it's good for just a couple of days because of the weight of fuel. So if you're going to go away for a week, and I probably wouldn't be going for this sort of thing, to be honest, just because of the amount of this that I need to take with me. Why I particularly like this bit of kit here is that this is, and I got this from Japan, so it is one of these little burners that I've just mentioned again, but it fits into this contraption here. So it just slides into there, and so that's great. And the great thing about it is that you can set it up like that, such that there's a good gap between the flame and the top. So whenever you use one of these gas burners, you need to have a little bit of gap here for the flame to get around the pot. So this one's great because the pot can now just sit on top of there. There's enough air coming in as well, so it's a great little pot stand as well. If you didn't have one of those, so in the other one I've got there, you can buy other little pots, and there are all sorts of different options. You could just put 2 stones down there, so this one just fits into there and the pot sits on top, and you can cook on that. So there are lots of different options, but your pot needs to be raised up a little bit. The great thing about this one, and it's made of titanium, is that if I don't, so if I can take that out, so if I want to and I've run out of fuel, I can put this together, and this turns into effectively a little mini wood burner. So there it goes, that just sits on the ground. I feed the wood in through there, and my pot sits on the top, and I've done this with my kid out in the woods, and we just got some twigs from the floor, and yeah, you boiled up the water. This took a very long time to do it though. There's a good 15 minutes of waiting for it to come to the boil, but it worked. So I've always got that backup plan. This weighs nothing, so for bikepacking this is fantastic. So probably my favourite bit of gear that I use. Now it's got to work out how to put it all back. There we go, great. So that fits into, where's my other pot? So this is my, this is a 450ml, was it 450? It might be a little bit more than that. Yeah, it's probably a bit more than that. Pot, I've got a little lid on there as well. Now the thing with these things is that they are very susceptible to the wind, so you need a wind screen. So this is what I've got here. It's an old speckled hen beer can that I've cut, and it sits around it. And you can get all sorts of other wind screens that go around your cooking setup. So here's a full-on thing from Vango that folds around. It's a bit overkill, really. You know what, my old speckled hen works just fine. So this I use for wild camping, really, when I've maybe got a bigger cooking system that I generally use. For bikepacking, I keep it as small and as light as possible. Yes, and sorry, this little Japanese thing that I got has got this little bit that slides onto the top there as well, just to help out. But yeah, best buy I've ever had. Use that a lot bikepacking. Anyway, and what I generally do with this is it sits in an old sock. So I've cut a sock, the toes off a sock, and then this just slides into there, and it just stops it rattling around a little bit. Yeah, so there we go. Toasty. Great. Okay, what next? Okay, what I spoke about before, about about getting a fire going and have a proper fire. Now when I go wild camping, if I'm going to get a fire going, if I can, I get some stones to surround the area, and then I've got this sort of grate. It's about that big, and then it's got legs which fold out, and I put that on top of the fire, and then when the fire's died down a little bit, I can put my pots on there. I can cook a couple of pots going on there. I can put a steak on there, and it's fantastic. If you're wild camping, if you're bikepacking, you can't really do that. So this is the solution that I've gone for, which are these grates. And again, get them online. I can't remember the name. If I can find something, I'll stick it up. But I'm sure you'll be able to find them. There's a small one and a big one. This small one is fine if you've got a small fire, and if you're going to make a live fire, I'll keep it as small as you can, as small as you need. And the needs for fire are, I've mentioned already. If you need something for warmth, then you build a big long fire in the winter. But if all you want to do is cook some food, then a little thing like this, put a couple of stones or a couple of logs on, this sits on top, and then you can either fry some stuff on there, or you can put your pot on there, or you got the bigger option. So I generally carry both of those. They're not that light, but they're reasonable, and they're quite easy to pack in. There's no big deal with those. So if you're going to do a proper fire, then I would take those. Okay, so the next option is to use solid fuel. So solid fuel, it comes, I send off and I get a whole load of them. These are hexamine solid fuel tablets, 8 large ones. There you go. One of those will cook, and this is what I used to basically use all the time when I was wild camping in my younger days. I'd use these solid fuel blocks. Any sort of DIY store will do them. The worry is that the fuel isn't as easy to come by as the alcohol fuel. So if you're going to head off around Scotland or something like that, yeah, you're going to take these. They're really convenient. So these things are fantastically convenient. I've always carried some of these. If you want to get a proper fire going as well, they're fantastic. Even if the wood is a bit wet, they help dry it out. So they're always a good option. They do just light. You can't use a flint or anything like that with them to get them going. You need to use a lighter. They need a flame in order to get themselves going. This is trioxamine, I think. It's from the US. The US military use this. It's particularly efficient, but it's very hard to get hold of. So I'm probably going to cook my food on that later on. Yeah, it's really simple, and you can literally just put it on the ground, put 2 stones either side, and put your pot on top, and just cook away. So in my youth, when I used to do a lot of walking and while camping up on the hills, then that's what I used to take. I found them just fantastic, and they just work all the time. They can smell a little bit, so if you're going to be out somewhere where there are wild animals that might be interested, some of the ones smell a little bit fishy, so you might be asking for trouble if you're out in Canada or somewhere like that. But are pretty good. Some of them can be a bit toxic, so I would do a bit of research beforehand. But I'm in the outdoors, and I'm just going to cook my food on it, and then so I'm not too fussed. Now you can just cook them on the ground. There are lots of different options as well. These here cost about £2. It's BCB, British Army use them. It's basically a contraption that folds down. You store the fuel in there as well, and then when you get out to where you want to go, you raise them up. And I'm going to use this in a minute. You put your fuel in the little bit that goes in there. There is also a little wind brake thing, so that slides. When I open it up, slide that in, that goes outside, slide that onto there, and I'll use this in a minute. That goes there, so it's got a little wind brake there, so you can put it into the wind just to help protect. But they're just really good. So if I was going to do a long distance bikepacking trip, I wouldn't rely on a fire. I wouldn't rely on alcohol burner. It's getting quite cold and drippy now. I'll rely on one of those because of the amount of fuel I have to take, and I wouldn't rely on one of these necessarily, because once I've run out of the fuel, it's a bit harder to find. So again, this is a going out for a couple of days thing, but I would take one of these as my backup plan. And what these are particularly good for is if you've been out on the bike and you just want to stop and have some lunch, maybe want to have a brew, these are really good just to crank this open. The fuel's in there already, ready to go. Light it, leave it there, and you're straight on with cooking. There's just no messing around. So they're a really good option to have as a backup, plus just on a lunch times to heat up and have a brew. So yeah, I'm a big fan of those. Anything more to say on those? Yeah, really cheap, just simple. I'm a massive fan of them. But I tend to use alcohol if I go out bike packing for a couple of days now. Yeah, because it's easy to get hold of. I don't know, I'm just more attracted to it. Okay, now we're into the gas side of life, and gas is probably the best option if you're going to go and do a trip for a number of days. I would probably go for gas. So here's a typical gas bottle. This is a 100-gram one. You can get 200s, 110s, and so on. You literally take off the cap, you screw on your gas burner, which is the stove effectively, and away you go. 100 grams of gas, so this will last me for a weekend, no problem, maybe 3 days. I haven't used this sort of thing much. They suffer, so this is inside it, it's got butane and propane. The issue there is that butane so it should be a gas ideally, but it turns into a liquid when you get freezing, but basically just below zero. So all you'll have left to burn is the propane that's in there, so you'll be left with this fluid. And if you go really cold, then none of it will burn, and you'll put your burner on here and it just won't work. So these are no real good in the cold. However, there are some options. This one is actually got isopropane, so this will get you down to a much lower temperature, and really we're talking about sort of 10 degrees, minus 10 degrees centigrade, I guess, in that sort of region. I've never tried using them in those temperatures. Now, if they do turn into liquid and it's really cold, then one thing you can do is put them in a little bath of water, because the water is 0 degrees. It'll actually warm these up. And I've seen some other contraptions with copper rods, which, you know, the flame heats up the copper, the heat runs down the copper and then heats the whole thing to help gasify and raise the temperature so it's high enough for these to work. This is pretty cold at the moment, so it may not work. They're concaved in the bottom here, so you don't always know how much fuel you've got, but you can drop it into water and tell. So if the water level is about here, then if I put it in the water and it bobs around so the water level's about here, I know that it's pretty much empty. If the water level's up just below the shoulder, then I know it's pretty much full. And what I used to do is write the weight on the bottom when I first get them, and then I weigh them. Next time I come back from a wild camp, I would weigh them and go, okay, I've got 50 grams of the fuel left. So these are good, right? They are good, and why they are really good is because you can control the heat on there, so you can simmer on them. So let me get the burner out. So different sorts of burners, and so the standard, the default burner, really, the thing that everyone uses is this thing. It's called a pocket rocket, and I can never work out how to get it out. There we go. It always a bit fiddly. Is a pocket rocket. It's made by MSR. It's sort of the standard. Then there are loads of other ones as well, and this is relatively expensive, so you can get some really cheap ones. And you've got this valve on the side, so you screw this whole contraption onto the top, which I'll do in a second, and then you open that valve and the gas comes out and you light it. It's really simple. Yes, the trouble with these things is they're really noisy. So they are great because they actually, if you want to look at weight side, let's talk about weight. Compared to the alcohol burner with that fuel, because of the amount of fuel you have to take, this is lighter than that little tin with the fuel. So this is a lighter setup overall. So a good, in that sense. These you can't get the fuel in as many places as you can get the alcohol fuel. So yeah, they're a lot noisier. Pocket rocket, the clue's in the title. It's really noisy. But like I say, you've got control over the flame. They're really simple. On it goes, light it, get the fire going, get the flame going, get your food on there and start cooking. So, you know, they are a really good way of doing your cooking. Okay, so that's the pocket rocket, and it comes in its own little box here. You might want to put a bit of padding in there if you're going to put it on your bike. But in terms of bike packing, yeah, this is the default. If you're going to go away for a few days, then this is the default. Okay, so the other thing you can use for gas is this thing here. So this is a mini version, and in fact, let's get it out and compare it. This is called the BSR 3000. You'll find that a lot of bike packers use it. A lot of backpackers will use it as well. It is very small, lightweight, and the snags with it are, let's have a look at the size comparison so you can see. So there you go. So those are those two. Weight wise, a lot lighter, clearly a lot lighter, a lot less bulk, so yeah, great for bike packing. But the snag with it is that It is still very noisy, probably as noisy as this one. It is not as efficient on the fuel, so you'll get through fuel more, and your cooking time will be reasonably quite a bit more. And there are some notes from people online which say that it's not as reliable, and some people these things have failed, so there is a bit of a reliability issue. But if you want to save weight, then this is great to take. I take this on all my trips only because it's so small and it fits into, so I've got a little bag here where I have all my cook stuff, little washing up liquid, and all the usual, little knife and things like that. But this is so small, it just fits into there. I might as well take it, because, and then I take some other stuff. Take my fuel, my alcohol fuel for cooking, but if I ever run out, then I can always go somewhere, and if I can find one of those gas canisters, I've got a stove ready to go on top of it. Okay, what you can also do with those stoves is to have a little stand, so your gas canister goes on the stand, because these can be a little bit unstable, particularly if you're taking a tent or something like that, and they literally do just slide into there, and there you go, and it's yeah, nice and stable. So it doesn't fall over and start a fire or anything like that. So yeah, they're quite a good little thing to take. Okay, and my final bit of kit, which is a hardcore bit of kit. I've used it a couple of times. It's brilliant. However, there's a big question mark over it, because it's pretty big, and this is what it is. So this is a liquid fuel burner. It comes with a bottle. This is a pressurized bottle, and into that bottle goes this pump. And I'm not going to go through all the details of this. You look up online how you do it, but basically you put liquid fuel into there, and it can be anything. It can be gasoline, it can be kerosene, it can be white spirits, white gas. You can use gas with this system. You can use all sorts of different, just loads of liquid fuels, pretty much anything. And so people who are doing expeditions and going long distance, where they may only be able to get petrol, for example, they'll use this gear. There are three big ones which I'll talk about in a second, but this is if you're going on an expedition. This is a multi-day thing. They're really good in the cold because they use liquid, unlike the gas canister, the gas stove I showed you before, which is all about it needs a gas to do. This thing effectively uses liquid. And another good reason for this is you can use this with gas, so I can just literally screw that on and use it as a gas canister. But the great thing is cold weather, I can turn this upside down, and inside here all the gas is effectively turned to liquid because it's so cold, but that liquid runs down the pipe, and then by the stove being nice and warm, that gasifies the liquid and then lights it. So yeah, it's good for gas as well. The snag with these for bike packing, I think, is they are really bulky. So if I was going to go, when I go hopefully to Scotland, I will probably take this, because I'm going to be out in the middle of nowhere and I just want to have all the options available to me. But it is a little bit bulky, so I need a bit more space to pack it into. So the legs come out like that. You've got, much like the other one, you've got a valve here on the side. There's a trick to how to light these. You basically have to prime them. So what you do, you pump the little pump that's in the bottle, that pushes some pressure into there. You then release some of that fluid into the base of here, and you light it. That basically is what's called priming it, and it's heating up all the elements, etc., and it's heating up any gas that's in that little pipe there. And then just as that flame's starting to go down, you open it up and release the pressure in there, a couple more pumps, and that's it. It's burning away. These things will cook your food real quick. Like I say, they're really good in the cold. They just reliable, work all the time. But like I say, weight and bulk and is a bit of an issue for you to consider if you're bike packing. So they're a long distance, long term, going out into the wild sort of bit of kit. But they're friggin' awesome. They're relatively expensive. There are three main companies. So there's Primus, which is the one I went for here, MSR with the Whisper Light, and Optimus. Is it Optimus? I think is the other company, a green bottling kit. They're all pretty much the same. I spent a lot of time looking it up, and this was the one I came to conclusion was the one I wanted to go for. But you can use all the different fuels, but to use those fuels, you have to have a little different nozzles that you fit on. There are 3 different nozzles that come in the kit. So you put the nozzle on that's appropriate to the sort of fuel that you're going to use. Yes, they require some maintenance, they require some cleaning, and they require a little bit of skill to, a little bit of knowledge to get going. But again, another great bikepacking option for cooking. So those are my 5 options if you're going to go bikepacking and you want to cook some food. They've all got their benefits and disadvantages. Gas is the way to go if you're going for a number of days, I would say. Those little gas canisters, remember, they're really good just to put in your pack anyway if you're going with one of the other fuels, because they're so light and simple. If you do ever find gas, they're really simple. Alcohol is not as light as it looks. It's simple to use, not as much control, real easy though, and is my sort of favourite at the moment if I'm going away for 2 or 3 days. You then got the solid fuel, which I'm going to use now to get my curry going, and they're good for a couple of days, I would say, quite easily. Really reliable and a great backup plan to always have, because they're relatively lightweight. For the ability to go and cook a meal, and then there's of course the fire. The fire is the one that I always like doing, but it's got some big considerations if you're going to light a fire. And fires, if you're wild camping, certainly are a bit of a hot topic. A bit of a bone of contention. Some people think it's reasonable, some people don't. I think there are some basic considerations, those 4 things I said, that you need to think about very seriously before you're going to be lighting fires. There we go, leave no trace, always take this with you. There you go. Yeah, pure, that's tons of heat. And the great thing about these solid fuels is there is tons of heat kicking out of this. I can see the heat coming out. That's fantastic. Get some water, it's going to heat up some water. And have a dehydrated curry and chill out for a little bit and then head home. Okay, well, this is just about boiling now, so I've got a chicken curry, but there are some people over there, quite a few people wandering around. So I'm just keeping my head down a little bit and don't want to grab any attention, so I will pack my stuff up here pretty quick, pour this in the bag, take the bag with me and get on the move as soon as they're out of sight, because I think they might end up doing a loop and coming back this way. So there we go, yeah, that's boiled. I'll get on with that now. Okay, so that's end of my video. Had my curry, which is great. Those people nearly caught me out. Managed to pack the kid up and get out of there before they walked through my area. So that video is really just about cook sets. When this lockdown ever ends, certainly in the UK, then if you get to go out, you're probably not going to be staying in a hotel or Airbnb for quite some time. So come the spring, if you're going to go and bike pack, probably your best option is to go and wild camp. I'll be really honest. If you're going to wild camp, you're probably not even going to get into any restaurants. You maybe be able to get takeaways and things like that, obviously, but it may just be better for you just to cook your own food. So there's 5 options available for you to get your food. Nearly home, nearly at the car rather. Right, my next videos will hopefully be more with bikes involved. Rather than packing, a bit more about bikes. Yeah, like I say, I'll try to do something in the next few weeks, but the snag is that I can't really go and pack stuff onto a bike and go anywhere. I can maybe go out for for a lunch somewhere and go out for a ride on the gravel bike somewhere, which I maybe do. But actually, the reality is I'm not going to be bike packing for quite some time with the lockdown. In the UK, it's all quite bad at the moment. So yeah, bike packing is just a thing that I want to do, but I can't really get out there and do it. Like I said earlier, March and April is my big period where I've got tons of time to get out and do loads of this. So I'm really hoping that we have a bit of relaxation on the lockdown. But Boris doesn't sound like he's any interest in easing the lockdown anytime soon. Some people are saying the summer, and I've heard a couple of experts online talking about the autumn. So we may not be going anywhere for a long time. But fingers crossed. Scotland, if not Wales, and hopefully the Netherlands, if things really do relax. I reckon that'll probably be around the summertime. So anyway, I've got another 10 minutes walking. So look after yourself, take care, be safe, and I don't know when I'll see you next, but hopefully see you soon.